Okay, there we go. Well, welcome everyone. Hello. I'm Brianne Rosner. I'm SNAG's Executive Director, and I am so excited to have our virtual reception for our 2026 Juried Student Exhibition. I believe we have 40 artists selected for the show. Please check it out online. I will put a link in the chat to that. And we're really excited. This is an annual exhibition. It is held in person when we have our conferences, which used to be held annually, and now they're held biennially. And so we've been doing online exhibitions only on the years that we're not in person. But this is, I think, the first year that we have the exhibition both online and in person. And we started doing the virtual receptions when we were online, but it's so wonderful to get to hear from students to share about their work. So that's something that we're going to continue doing, whether or not the show is in person as well. And so with that, this has been going on, I think, for at least 30 years. I saw Billy Thide joined us. We've been trying to trace back when the first student exhibition was, but this has been a consistent mainstay for SNAG, and so we are happy to continue in the tradition. So we're first going to hear from our jurors, Melissa Agabigam and Helios Heartstar. So I'm going to invite them on, and they are going to tell you about their experience in the jury and behind their selections. So Melissa, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. First of all, I wanted to say hello to everybody. Hi. I'm Melissa Agabigam, and I wanted to thank Brianne and Snag for inviting me to jury this year's exhibition. It's a huge honor. I was very pleased with the work, and I wrote a little sort of like summary of where my headspace was when I was looking at the work. So bear with me, all right? Uh, The theme of this year's conference was labor and legacy, and that kind of provided a useful lens through which to consider the submissions of this exhibition. As I review the work alongside my co-juror, Helios Heartstar, who was also really lovely to work with, I found myself thinking about labor not only as a physical effort or a technical skill, but as a broader commitment to making an investment of time, attention, research, experimentation, and care. The strongest works revealed sustained engagement with their ideas and materials, demonstrating that meaningful labor often resides in thoughtful decision making as much as it does in technical execution. Legacy emerged in equally varied ways for me. Some works directly engaged personal, cultural, or family histories, while others participated in the ongoing legacy of jewelry and metalsmithing itself. As a field, we inherit methods, traditions, values, and systems of knowledge from those who come before us. And in my jurying process, I was drawn to artists who recognize that inheritance while also contributing to something distinctly of their own, whether it was through innovation, critique, reinterpretation. They also introduced new perspectives. An important aspect of the jurying process was the recognition that these works were encountered through documentation rather than in person. As a juror, it's really hard to look at all of these amazing pieces and to just select, like a certain allocation of them. And so oftentimes, one of the things that I was looking for was how was the documentation of these pieces. Photographs became that primary means through which labor, materiality, scale, and intention were communicated. Strong documentation did more than describe an object. It helped translate the experience of the work, allowing its nuances and ambitions to remain visible across distance. Careful presentation also demonstrated an understanding of the documentation itself as a form of professional practice and extension of the work's communication. And this is something I think is really important for students to know is that the better you document your work, the better you're presenting yourself, and therefore you have a better shot at sometimes getting into an exhibition. The exhibition that emerged reflects the diversity and vitality of contemporary student practice. Rather than illustrating a single interpretation of labor and legacy, these works collectively demonstrate the many ways artists engage with inherited knowledge, embodied making, and the creation of new futures for the field. Together, I believe that this work reminds us that legacy is not something we simply receive. It is something that we actively shape through our labor, our questions, and our contributions to the communities around us. I really appreciate everyone giving me the opportunity to view your work. And thank you again for letting me jury Brienne and Snag.
Thank you. And that was, we have an exhibitions committee, so we collectively work to select the jurors. Helios, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Helios Heartstar. I also want to say what an honor it was to be able to be one of the jurors for this year's conference. For me, it's sort of a full circle thing. I got a Best in Show a couple years ago, and so yeah, it just feels really great to be part of this and to see all the amazing work. And I guess for me, I had a similar process of like I was looking for things like technical skill, innovative ideas. I was looking for like definitely looking at the photography. There were some pieces that were really amazing, and the pictures weren't quite. You couldn't really see the details, but I've seen some of them in person, and I was like, oh, I know this would have been in there. But yeah, it was just really great to see such amazing work. I think we had like 170 something applications or applicants, and so much great work all across the board. I had a hard time rating them because we sort of rated them, and I kept giving these really high scores for so many of them. I'm like, I need to like dial it back, otherwise they're all gonna like they're all gonna have sevens. So there was tons of amazing work. Thanks everyone for um, being part of it, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Great. So we will move on. And now we're going to hear from some of the students that are were selected. So move to the next one. First, we're going to hear from Heywan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi everyone. First, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Hewon Kang, and I explore the healing process after PTSD based on my personal trauma. Today, I'd like to introduce my piece titled Well Done. This work began with one question. If the painful memory disappeared, what would remain as part of who I am? Who I am. Like many people who suffer from PTSD, I'm especially sensitive to gauge of others and to societal stereotype. In this piece, I want to express uh, those gauges as well as the emotion I felt from them. So I made a cup use copper argonate seat and a stained glass technique. And could you please next to the page? And in my practice, I often combine metals with other different materials such as silicone, biomaterial, and 3D printing. For this piece, I used algae. This is a biomaterial made from seaweed. Algae slowly dissolves and disappear when it come into contact with water. And could you please next to the page? Yeah. And through this transformation with water, I sought to illustrate that just as taking medicine doesn't instantly cure an illness, the cleansing process require a long time, and I hope to show what remained afterward. For the alginate sweet to disappear from this cup, I took about 2 hours. During that time, I have to keep pouring water over it again and again. Nevertheless, there are still watermark and have small sticky pieces left on it. I built the entry process of remaining this praying as the result of someone effort to read a normal life. I felt that this process itself deserved to be recognized and celebrated, much like a trophy. So the the whole process and sharing it with us give me strength, and I believe that pain can slowly fade when we face it and share it. So through my work, I hope people who have similar pain can feel courage, comfort, and hope. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Lillian. Is Lillian with us?
Okay, here I am. Okay. So this piece titled Innocence, it's a stereoscope. And if you're familiar with, there's an old-fashioned photo viewer called a stereoscope. And the way it works is it's showing two images, only one is it's taken with a kind of spaced apart the same distance as human eyes, so that the image, but it's just got enough difference, like the eye distance, that then when you look at the two images together, you kind of see the image in 3 dimensions. So that's the traditional stereoscope. And what I want to do with it is to pair 2 different images, and that, like, your brain, when you're looking at something, your eyes are kind of forced to, like at that proximity and with those lenses, your left eye sees one image and your right eye sees another image, and because the images are different, they don't mesh up exactly like a stereoscope would. So it kind of creates this collage effect that's only happening in your mind. It's going to be different for each viewer, just depending on how their brain is pairing the information from each eye. And for me, that kind of, it's like a really good way to, create an analogy for what it's like to, like, be in a place but not feel like you're part of what's going on, kind of like imposter syndrome. But there's lots of other situations where someone might be present, but maybe their mind is wandering, their mind is elsewhere, or they, for some reason, they don't feel like they're part of that group. But apart from that, or in addition to that, it's also like the way, our minds take all this information, like, in memories. I mean, not just visual, but all the experiences that form a memory, and then we end up combining it. I mean, our mind builds something else that, until we're proven wrong, we believe that that's what we saw or what we did, and then when we, experience, like, go back to a place and see that, oh, we've remembered it incorrectly, but our minds seem so set on the way we remember it. Really, it's just a conglomeration of these experiences that we're kind of building something that can deteriorate, and it can be fallible. And that's kind of like, these stereoscopes are to create experience that that reminds you of that, or likens, just gives you that sensory feeling of, layering experiences and memories and images together. And what do you get, basically? So it's a collage that only exists in the mind of the viewer. So that's kind of the basic explanation of this. The specific piece, in a sense, so it's pairing two different photographs. One was in Taiwan of a religious festival. The other one was on my dad's ranch in Oklahoma. And both of them are instances where the child in the situation is not aware of what an adult or what society might think of as being, taboo. There were pole dancers as part of the religious festival, but everyone was just enjoying it, and it wasn't a negative thing, and it was a family experience. So that was kind of different from the way that we do as a family here. And it's with my daughter at the ranch, so there's a sex doll in the stock tank as a gag, and she's just skipping around happy as can be, knowing nothing about why there's a blow-up doll in the stock tank, and just like thinking about how childhood innocence kind of and obliviousness helps a child to kind of like, in a way, retain a sense of innocence when things around them maybe are going to shit. But anyway, so I think my time is up, but I'll keep talking as long as you want to let me. But
well, you have some other images that we showed.
Those were, we could just go through those really quick. So this was like the first iteration of the handmade stereoscope, and it is a little bit more like an old-fashioned stereoscope where you put slides in it. Usually a stereoscope slides are attached, so the same picture stays together. But this one, the slides are not attached, so you can mix it up. And what really just spurred this idea of putting the two different images together was playing with stereoscopes and having a passport photo of my daughter, the one on the left, and my son, the one on the right. And the framing is the same, having them side by side on my refrigerator and looking at them with a stereoscope and seeing their faces become one. And they were just a really weird new individual that didn't exist in real life that had characteristics of both of them. So that was what really just spurred this quest to see what can I do with putting the different images together. And you can show the last one if you want. That's another stereoscope created after the one called Innocence. And this also shows the two photos that are shown in Innocence, and then the two photos that are in this other stereoscope. And that one is called Belonging, and it's like wanting to be somewhere, but wanting to also be like having these two different aspects of your life that you really long for, but they don't go together. And like, how can you have them both? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but your mind is always trying to put those things together. And you can't have it all, but you try. So my farm, Taipei 101.
Thank you so much, Lillian.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity.
Next we have Jasmine.
Hello. So my name is Yasmin Alreyes. First, I want to say thank you so much to the jurors and to SNAG for having me. And thank you so much. My piece, The Land Cries for Its Roots, is about the connection between land and the native that surpasses destruction and uprooting. As you can see by the tiers, they are outlines of Palestine and Palestinian land. So how even though the settler state of Israel is currently committing genocide on Palestinians and Palestinian land, Palestinian lands cannot survive without the reciprocal relationship between the indigenous um, and its soil that the settler will never be able to imitate, and how, even amidst the rubble, it is our land and no one else's. You can kind of see it in the pic, it's a little bit cut off, but I did use anchoring cement at the bottom of this piece to create a almost like as if you were in the destruction yourself, or it kind of looks a bit like a volcano, like something is also sprouting out of it to imitate dirt, except what is currently to reflect what is currently going on in Gaza specifically. Um, this piece also calls out to the Palestinian diaspora who have been scattered across the world, like myself, a piece that calls out to continuity and collectivity to Palestinians everywhere. I like, in general, all of my work to communicate what is difficult to verbalize. Even though I'm doing it now, it's still super difficult. This is actually the first time I've ever communicated this piece in a very, I feel like, constructed way. Usually I never know what to say because it's so taxing. But like I was saying, like I like my work to communicate was difficult to verbalize, where everybody instead who's viewing it are able to feel what my work is translating rather than just hearing or simply viewing. But to talk about the actual process of this work, I casted my own face in bronze because this was an ode to my lineage and family. And I see myself as a continuation and perseverance of all of those before me and all of those to come, God willing. Melissa was talking about inheritance as well. I hadn't thought about that beforehand, but I think that also kind of can describe this piece pretty well. So I really liked what she mentioned about that. Um, but the large scale casting of my face was done for a metals class at the time where we were doing iron and bronze pours, and the casting of tears shaped the castings of tear shaped in the shape of Palestine are sand castings done in ancient bronze for the metals and jewelry casting class that I was taking at the time, which was taught by Andy Lowry. Hi, Andy. I know he's on this call, so I just wanted to say hi. Um, Sand casting was a really useful technique for this idea. So I'm really thankful to have learned that at the time. I then soldered the tiers and jump rings onto brass wire that I formed on my physical face to get the shape of the bone structure to then match with the actual mask. And I merged the projects from these two classes to create this piece. And in its final stages, I used mostly jewelry techniques and tools to finish the sculpture. And I think that those two fields, sculpture and metalsmithing, intersect and can intersect very beautifully. And it's what I've been exploring in my time as undergrad at Towson. And I'm also very thankful to have that flexibility and to continue to do this. So thank you so much again. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next, we have Joanne.
Hello. My name is Joanne Mycroft. I am, well, consider myself to be an art jewelry maker and primarily a fabricator. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you very much for this opportunity to show my work and to talk about my work, my approach to my work. My piece Apple is a fabricated hammered domed ring with a bezel set stone and leaves made using repoussé to add texture and dimension to the piece. I remember as a child looking at my dad's Book of Treasures found in the tomb of Tutankhamun and was drawn to the metalwork pieces such as his golden sandals and funerary masks. Today, I continue to draw inspiration from eclectic sources, museums, contemporary design, art, culture, and literature. It has taken time for me to find my own direction with my work, with the years I've spent teaching art and design and helping to crystallize what I want to achieve with my own work. I know I find myself thinking about how to use everyday objects, things such as apples and platters and candlesticks and dripping wax and things from my own cultural background growing up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. I think of my approach to jewelry as old school. I have a deep appreciation of detailed processes that lead to refined curated expressions of my own ideas. These techniques are key to achieving my design intent through every detail of my work, such as the texture of a bone handle, the drip of a wax candle, the skin of an apple and its curving leaves, and the sweep of a fern frond, and so on. I want my work to be fun, and I want to have fun making my work. I make my jewelry to express my creativity and for the love of making. I love to work with gold and silver. I love the quality of the metals and how they behave and how they collaborate with me to achieve anything that I can imagine. I love to saw, I love to file. I love old traditional methods such as granulation, loop and loop, chasing repousse that I use in my apple ring. And I relish bringing new designs to life through techniques that have supported generations of artisans. I approach my work as a trained designer. I have an idea, I think through the execution and explore it in my sketchbook until I feel that I have fully resolved the plan that expresses the concept. Then I select the materials and techniques I want to use that will bring the idea to reality in the most holistic way. And I'm constantly learning and honing new skills to develop my work. I mean, currently I'm taking classes to learn the process of casting because I realize that sometimes I think that I need to use a piece that I can't actually fabricate and would be better as a cast piece. So I've been having a lot of fun learning how to carve and shape and form wax, and then the whole process, using the vulcanizer to make molds and so on. It's, yeah, fab, and I love it. Um, so as a designer, maker, I think of the constraints of jewelry as a medium. I think for myself that it has to function and be wearable in some way. And that I think this is the core to transforming seemingly unrelated art and design fields such as furniture design or fashion into jewelry pieces. My apple ring and my other pieces of work function in equal parts as both jewelry and art, objects that are equally valid in use or on display. They are objects that express my original ideas, creativity, and the skills of my skills as a maker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Hannah.
Hi, everyone. My work, while I'm at Southern Illinois University, I'm getting my master's right now. So I'm heading into my thesis year. So all of my work is pretty much revolving around one central concept. I try to bring a little bit more focus onto the healing process from sexual trauma. So this piece specifically is showing a woman in transformation from her human self into a great blue heron. For aligning with my personal mythology, blue herons have always kind of been a good omen or a symbol of strength for me, symbol of freedom as well. So I've been using that kind of as a commonplace symbol through my work, as well as using the bull as a symbol of strength in some of my other pieces. I also rely on my materiality to help with my concept. I use pearls a lot in my work. They're a really great representation of something beautiful coming from a traumatic event. Pearls are formed by an irritant entering a mollusk, and then the mollusk then coats it that irritant in layers of nacre over and over again until it gets the pearl and it's not a threat anymore to that animal. So I find that really interesting, and it's very similar to my healing process from my personal trauma. And throughout my conversations with different survivors from sexual assault and sexual trauma, I can see a lot of universal themes and a lot of hard work that goes into the healing process, and that it may not be such a linear experience for everyone, and it's really cyclical. And you never know when it can kind of come back in and affect your life again. So most of my work is about constant transformation and a constant healing process that never really goes away after you have that traumatic experience. And that topic is a little bit taboo. A lot of people don't like to talk about sexual trauma, especially women or people who identify differently. It's not really talked about, and it really is a central experience to many people. And I really want to just shed light on that experience. The more I talk to more people, the more people can relate to me, and we have meaningful conversations about this topic. So I think it's really important to bring that into the forefront of some of the art jewelry world as well. This piece is made with lost wax casted elements as well as some hand fabrication. I really like playing with both aspects and both techniques. It really allows me to have my hand present in the making process and achieve some harder forms that I can't really get with some fabrication techniques. So I've been interested in trying to make that connection more fluid and almost impossible to tell. And so if you look at some of my other work on my Instagram, you can see that kind of digging into that process a little bit more. This piece, the wings are fabricated from sheet with some hand etchings on them. And then the central figure with her three heads is lost wax cast, and the talons are also cast. And then I set the pearls in place afterward. But that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Next, we have Ruby.
Hi, my name is Ruby Queen. A lot of my practice is grounded in like human relationship and tendency. And I like exploring how to convey these feelings or activities that might be very normal to a lot of people, to like an audience. A lot of my work focuses on myself, so it was really interesting to explore a relationship between other people in this piece. And like the ways that people view and experience their own relationships in contrast to like how I view and experience my own relationships. So this piece, Cheek a Cheek, is about a relationship between a mother and daughter. The daughter is 3 years old. In the photo in the piece, she was like just a couple months old. So when I interviewed her, she could talk. She's a little bit older. But I interviewed both the mother and the daughter with the same 5 questions about their relationship, its changes, and any significant memories or events that they could remember. It was really interesting, like the different ways that they would convey the same ideas and memories to me, obviously because the daughter was 3 years old, so she doesn't have a very large language word sort of repertoire quite yet. But I also asked them to each bring an object that they felt represented their relationship or was important to their relationship. So the mother brought me a Jordan almond. She married into an Italian family, and there's a tradition where the family will give new parents Jordan almonds, where it's like to represent starting their life as sweet with their new baby. And the daughter brought me a disco ball because her and her mother and her family had been having a lot of dance parties in her room at the time that this piece was made. So during their interviews, both had mentioned co-regulation through physical contact. So when the daughter would be upset or worried or wanted comfort, she would put her cheek against her mother's cheek. And the mother had mentioned to me that she had done this since she was a baby, and she thought it was really sweet that she had continued, even though she was only 3 years old, through all of the development that happens in those 3 years, that she had continued doing this activity to kind of help comfort her. The mother also mentioned how the beginning of the relationship was difficult. Obviously, a lot of women through the birthing process, through childbirth, experience a lot of pain. And this experience was very similar to that of a lot of other women. She had received a lot of stitches. And this had left her with a lot of residual pain for those first couple months of her relationship with her new baby. So both the mother and the daughter are pictured in the piece, which is a brooch worn across the chest. They're both pictured cheek to cheek with their object that they had brought me, that they had thought was important. It's like almost that they're actively and forever co-regulating with this thing that they think is important, which I think is really sweet. And then they're tied together by both a traditional string of pearls and then one that is threaded with suture. This is kind of reminiscent of the early days of their relationship, with the pain and the peace from the suture and those nice, calm, sort of light pearls. So yeah, that's all I have, but thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Frankie.
Oh, there we go. Hi, I'm Frankie Blair. Thanks so much for having me. This is a really big honor. I just graduated with my bachelor's from Virginia Commonwealth University, so this is like my first like big gallery, and I'm really proud to be in it. So thank you. Um, this piece is called Wide Open. It's sort of a practice for me of creating ceremonial armor, armor that's kind of useless, like on the battlefield, but has like a ceremonial meaning for coronations or for parades or for some sort of like uplifting meaning. And this piece is mostly about forcing emotional vulnerability through physical vulnerability. So I use imagery like lace and these like open gaps in like around the heart and the throat and the spine in order to kind of force the body into a physically vulnerable position where it's very open to like an attack from a sword or another like sort of weapon. And then it sort of forces your brain into a state of emotional vulnerability, which is something that I make a lot of work about. I did write an artist statement, so I thought I would read that out for everyone. On the battlefield, the most vulnerable parts of the body are protected by metal armor. This gorget defends the throat, but leaves openings that could allow mortal wounds. While the spine, throat, and heart are exposed to attack by large gaps, these gaps also allow room to breathe. Similarly, our emotional armor needs gaps in order to develop empathy and connection. If we close ourselves off entirely from the outside world, we will be safe but alone. By leaving the body in a physically vulnerable position, I hope to condition my mind into a similarly unguarded state. It is a reminder to check my ego and disassemble my own emotional armor, since vulnerability feeds deeper connection to others and the world around me. The gaps in this armor is an invitation of trust. If I show you the most vulnerable parts of myself, will you strike me or accept me? So this is also I'm also a fiber artist. I do a lot of fiber work, and I've been recently incorporating that into my jewelry. And so this was created by using real lace in the rolling mill and pressing it into brass to make all of the different panels. And then I soldered all of those panels into the wire frame. And that's actually a practice that I think I want to continue to create more of a full suit of armor in the future. So this is an ongoing project. And I'm really excited to share it with everyone. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jake.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Jessup. I just graduated with my BFA this May from Missouri State University, and my entry for the SNAG student exhibition is Over the Top. Oh, and this is called Three Spout Watering Can. That's what happens when you're working on something in the middle of submitting it. It is one of three watering cans I fabricated for my senior exhibition. And these watering cans communicate a crisis between value and dysfunction. My previous work was about personal growth and broadly sorting through the values I've been taught throughout my life. While working through those ideas, I thought a lot about the cognitive tools I have for understanding the world. The more I worked on myself, the more I recognized that some of those tools are ineffective. But as I think about how to change them, or even if I should, I find it difficult because of how valuable they are to me when I'm defining who I am. I strongly relate with watering cans as a tool because my goal, as I evaluate the kind of person I want to be, is to grow in a way that increases my ability to nurture other people. So these watering cans are thought out, intentionally dysfunctional tools that in an art context have value as an object. Because they're recognizable tools, when you look at them, you can understand why they don't work. It's much harder to understand how or why cognitive tools don't work. So these watering cans serve as a stand-in for exploring those ideas. Brianne, would you go to the next slide for me? These are the other two. With that context, over the top represents tunnel vision or hyperfixation and trying to balance the tendency to obsessively think about one thing at a time. In altering the functionality of a tool like this, I found it naturally represented similar difficulties in unbalanced cognitive tools. For example, when using the watering can, this watering can over the top is very easy to pour too much water in one place and have nothing left over for anything else. I really enjoy the fabricating type of thing, so I want to talk a little bit about fabricating it. To create the watering cans, I started by modeling each of them in Rhino and 3D printing mock-ups at scale to try to decide on the size I wanted to work on. And then use those models to create the templates for the spouts and the handles and everything. I even printed using ABS some forming stakes to get the shapes just right at the size that I wanted. Because one of the most difficult parts about fabricating these was fabricating them in a jewelry studio where everything's meant to be on a smaller scale. It taught me a lot about making something like this. And one of the funnest parts or like craziest parts, I guess, was just like having to scale everything up. I had to get a super big pickle bath that made everything take longer because it was cold. And so often I would do a little bit of soldering and then just leave it overnight. Or for at certain points when I had all this copper in one place and trying to heat it up to melt solder, I ended up having to build like a small temporary kiln around my soldering station just so I could trap all that heat and get everything hot enough. That's all I have to share. Thank you so much for listening and giving me the opportunity. Oh, there was another picture. One of the other hardest parts was getting the handle to visually go through all three spouts. That was a real challenge. If you want to talk to me about it, feel free to. I'd love questions later.
Thank you. And Sydney.
Hi, my name's Sydney Torres. I'm an MFA candidate at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. I'm entering my second year this year. So I'm pretty new to metalsmithing. For about 8 years before entering this program, I worked as a metallurgist, a metallurgical engineer. And so my undergrad and some graduate school was dedicated to studying that. So coming from a science-oriented background and a very Catholic upbringing, a lot of my work kind of explores these intersections of science, magic, and religion. And I've been specifically interested in some medieval and early modern art and the scientific discoveries of those times, specifically illuminated manuscripts, apothecaries, alchemical practices, and everything esoteric. So my entry, which is Lisophagus vials, is the product of learning about this medieval Chinese pursuit of the elixir of life and the toil and trial and error that it took to get anywhere with that, which was ultimately futile. So I decided to use that as my inspiration, and the owl and opossum, which are classic nocturnal animals, are the representatives or archetypes of our unsettling mortality. They're peculiar and sometimes awkward creatures, and they've adapted really, really well to fumbling through the dark. So I work a lot right now in bronze using lost wax, investment casting, and in this case, the bronze is a reference to the historical use of bronze to commune with the divine. It's the conduit. And so these brazen forms of the nocturnal animals are cradling these fragile little glass vials containing the answers to our prayers. And it's the cure to all our human vulnerabilities. So in the end, the vials are a testament to our insecurities and how those have not changed over time. And regardless of that, we're still pursuing it. It's the inheritance that we have as humans. And yeah, so this was actually my first foray into casting at this small scale. Previous to this, it was all like industrial scale casting in steel, but I had a lot of fun learning about it, and it's part of a series. So you may have seen in the AI pop-up in Adorn Spaces, I had another vial in there, which was an armadillo, and it fits in with the same theme. But yeah, I had a lot of fun working on this, and I'm really grateful to be included in the exhibition and this reception. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that concludes our student presentations. So if the jurors want to come back on, please join me. You don't have to, but it'd be great. The jurors made the selections for Best in Show and honorable mention. And it was very hard. So I think there's two Best in Shows and one honorable mention. The Best in Shows will each get a quarter page ad in Metalsmith magazine and a 1 year SNAG membership. So drum roll something. See if I get the next slide. So those are Yasmin and Vonnegut. Congratulations. And then we also had honorable mention, who gets a 1 year SNAG membership. And that is to Charlotte Asbrook. Congratulations. And I believe that is everything. So if you want, we do have some time. I don't know if anybody has questions for any of the artists, but you're welcome. I'll stop sharing my screen and you're welcome to put your videos on if you'd like, and you can ask if anybody has any questions. You're welcome to ask them verbally or in the chat, and we can stay on for a few minutes if people have questions. And I'll put the link to the student exhibition. I was holding out because then I'm like, oh, the award winners are on there. We should wait. But please check out all of the wonderful work in the exhibition. I've just put that link in the chat. And that will be on view until August 31st. Maybe nobody has questions? Okay, well, thank you, Melissa and Helios. It was great working with you. And well done. It's never easy. I think we said 170 some artists, but then they each could submit 3 pieces. So there was like many, many pieces to go through. So yeah, y'all did a great job. And all right then. Well, there's lots of accolades in the chat, so we'll just let them finish out and then we'll sign off for the night. So, okay. Well, thank you everyone. It's been a pleasure and have a great rest of your day and please check out the show. And we'll see you somewhere sometime. Take care. Bye.
Hey.